is Solava Ibrahim. I'm from the University of Cambridge and affiliated to OPHI as well. Right, so the second dimension that we think is missing in the data on poverty is empowerment. And basically our motivation in writing this paper was to understand the interrelationships between human agency, empowerment, and poverty. Now, Professor Sen defines agency as the act of an individual, or the ability of an individual to act on behalf of what he or she values and has reason to value. Defining empowerment is a much more difficult task because reviewing the different definitions of empowerment, the paper came out at least with 33. But generally, empowerment had been defined, or could be defined in two different ways, either as an increase in human agency or as an increase in human agency while taking into account the different institutional constraints on a person to actually undertake these acts of agency. Now, reviewing the different data and survey instruments on empowerment and agency, we discovered that these data are fairly weak, because with exception of a few unique questions on control over income and household decision-making, a lot of the questions do not capture whether the sense of value, whether the person actually values making these choices or not, and the sense of coercion, whether the person was actually, had a free choice in actually making these decisions or not. So the set of indicators we're proposing, we wish to capture first human agency and to capture also the autonomy, the ability of a person to actually to make these decisions without coercion. And finally, we're also proposing a set of limited institutional indicators. Now, the set of indicators are very small and short, but because we were restricted to using questions that had been tested before. The first indicator is the household decision making with regard to different domains. So, such as minor and major household expenditures, education, health, as well as marriage choices, politics, and religious beliefs. We also added a question on if the person didn't actually make this decision, could he or she, make this decision or not. We also borrowed questions that reflect domain-specific autonomy from the field of psychology, especially the work of Ryan and Desi. We try to ask the person, first of all, whether this decision was based on his or her own values and interests, or whether they were affected or wanted to simply comply by social values, or whether they had a fear of blame or punishment while making this decision. The two final indicators are related to institutional constraints, where we have a bit of we know that these are quite controversial, but in the field of political empowerment, what we're suggesting is an indicator on the ability of individuals to hold local authorities accountable. And in the market domain, we are suggesting access to credit. We are aware that this is a very controversial indicator and that it's not sufficient measure for empowerment, but we think that simply having access to credit can be a means for the poor to compensate for their low saving and income levels. Right, so once we hopefully have these data, what can we do with them? We believe in agency and empowerment are intrinsic dimensions, however missing, of poverty, or poverty measurement, basically. And we believe that there is a virtuous circle between human development and empowerment. Therefore, one can make the claim that empowerment is also not just intrinsically, but also instrumentally valuable for certain development outcomes, such as enhancing governance, promoting more inclusive, pro-poor forms of growth, as well as enhancing project effectiveness at the micro level. Therefore, however, we cannot test these claims unless we've actually gathered the data on empowerment. So finally, it's just a note that this is a short list and that it is by no means a way of capturing the multidimensionality and complexity of a concept such as empowerment. However, it's just simply one way of doing it. Thank you.